Welcome to Hear Her Sports. I'm Elizabeth Emery. This week I spoke to pole vaulter Katie Nageotte, another athlete with her eyes on the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. In the 2016 Olympic trials, she tied for fifth, so is certainly well on her way. She was the collegiate indoor and outdoor D2 national champion and D2 national record holder in 2013, an alternate for the world team in 2015, and a bronze medalist at the NACAC Games in 2015. Her current world ranking is 12th. Next week, she is competing in the U.S. National Championships, aiming for a berth on the World Championship team to compete later this summer. Find out more about that on hearhersports.com/episode notes. On that same page, find links to the books she likes, other stuff we talk about, and her sponsors. If you're thinking about purchasing any of these items, it really helps the podcast if you do so through our website, either because I receive a small percentage of money for these links, or we can report link stats to potential sponsors. We really appreciate your support and interest in what the athletes care about and what they are using for their sports. A big thank you to Allie's Bar for their delicious, healthy bars. Get 50% off and free shipping on their bars. Use promo code HERSPORTS. Find out more at alliesbar.com, ALLYSBAR.com. Now let's get started. Here's Katie Nageotte.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
And you're a native of the Cleveland area, but you're not training here now, right?
Correct. I grew up in Olmsted Falls, which is about 20 minutes outside of Cleveland. And so, yeah, I lived there basically up until my first year out of college. I moved down to Knoxville to train. And then after about a year and a half, I came back home and was training between Ashland, which is where I went to college, and Akron University a little bit. And just a couple months ago, I moved out to Washington State to train out here.
What brought you to Washington State?
So the coach at Washington State is the American record holder, and he had just retired. And I was looking for a new situation. I texted him in the fall. I was looking for a new situation, and I looked at a couple different places, but I texted him because I had heard he had taken this position if he could coach elites. And he was like, yeah, come on out. And so right before Thanksgiving, I went out, and it was just the perfect fit. So after my indoor season, I made the move. So,
well, that's exciting that you found a perfect coach.
Yeah, I think time will tell, but I think it's a really good situation and a really good fit. And he's exactly what I need right now.
Oh, that's great. This is the first time I'll be doing it in this format, but I want to do 5 speed questions so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
You ready?
Sure.
You have really cool sneakers in your latest Instagram image, so I was wondering what your favorite sneakers are.
Oh, man. Well, I represent Adidas, and I love Adidas shoes. My favorite trainers are the Supernova Glides.
Nice. And I also noticed that in most of your photos, you have high socks. Tell me about the high socks.
Yeah. So when I first started working with Adidas, they sent me like over 100 pairs of socks, and a bunch of those were really fun calf-high printed socks. And so I was just like, you know what, that's going to be my thing this year. So I wear a different pattern of calf-high socks.
They're sweet. They're really sweet. And can normal people get those?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. All right. So the next question is, are you an early bird or a night owl?
A night owl. Oh, I'm so bad in the mornings.
Are you?
Yes.
How late do you stay up?
Well, I've been really good lately, but there was a time when I would be up till like 2 a.m, no problem, but I'd sleep until like 11
right.
sometimes. So yeah, I definitely like nights better.
And what's your favorite all-time sporty memory?
Oh, man. So my favorite memory with pole vaulting, it's actually a high school meet. It was my sophomore year of high school, so I was about 15 years old, and I had just broken. It was the first time I ever broke a meet record, and I think I jumped like 11 feet that day, or it was maybe 11.1. And my dad actually passed away when I was 16, and so that meet he was there, and it was just an awesome memory for me. And he came running up and just gave me the biggest hug. So that will forever be my favorite meet.
That's a nice
Regardless.
one.
Yeah, it was fun.
And do you have an indulgence?
Oh yeah, pretty much any food that's bad for me. No, I definitely have a sweet tooth. I love sweets, and I had quite I have a problem with just moderation. So there's a lot of food in front of me, I eat it, but I think sweets are probably my biggest thing. I actually have dessert the night before each competition. So
All right, and the last one, what are you reading now or watching on TV now?
okay, well, my guilty pleasure is definitely The Bachelor / Bachelorette, and I've come to own up to it. I'm not reading anything now, but I tend to like books that are like kind of the suspense thrillers. And so Pretty Baby was a good one that I read recently, and stuff that's like The Girl on the Train, like similar vibes to that, where it's
Right.
kind of creepy and there's a twist at the end. So, The Good Girl was another one that I read that was really good. But yeah, so now my time is taken up by The Bachelorette. So
I am interested in how you started. So approach it from maybe a different twist of like, what attracted you when you were in high school? No, you were younger than high school, right?
yes.
Why don't you tell the story? But what I'm interested in is what attracted you. Like, what was the attraction of seeing the pole vaulters?
Yeah. So when I was really little, I was a gymnast, and I was always doing things very gymnasty related. For example, when I was in 5th grade, I climbed to the top of a soccer goal and tried to flip off of it and dislocated my wrist. And moments before that, my mom had yelled at me because I was climbing on a light post, and she was like, "I'm not taking you to the emergency room tonight." And then 5 minutes later, I ran over to her with my wrist was out of place, and she's like, "Well, I guess I'm taking you to the emergency room tonight." So I loved anything involving upper body strength, like climbing on things, and anything adrenaline related. And so in middle school, in 7th grade, that was the first time we were allowed to do track and field for our public school, and they took us over to the track, and I saw the high schoolers doing it, and I instantly was like, I have to try that. And I begged my coaches for days to let me go over there, and I don't think they really wanted to deal with the pole vault, so they kept saying no. And finally, by the end of like the 3rd or 4th day, they were like, fine, go over there. There was one girl and the high school coach, and all 70 pounds of me walked over and was like, can I try? And I've been hooked ever since.
When I watch, the Olympic pole vaulting, I don't know how you would learn how to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like there's in between step. I mean, you're either on the ground or you're flying through the air. So how do you learn how to do that?
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. I think most of us at this level kind of forget that transition of like very, very beginners. But I think the best way you do it is you work on plant drills. You do a lot of stuff off to the side of the pit, and you work on general strength. And you work your way up. You start on really small poles, gripping really low, basically just like jumping into the pit with a pole in your hand. And you just slowly but surely start doing, like, you'll start with the pole tip dragging on the ground just a couple steps out, and just try to flip upside down and land on your back. And it just slowly but surely, then you try to flip upside down but land over on your stomach, and then you try to flip over but flip around. It's kind of hard to explain just over a voice thing, but you kind of flip over onto your back. And so you work your way up to like bigger, longer poles, and so everybody's like, oh, isn't that so scary? But we've worked our way to the point where we're at, that the height itself it's not like we out of nowhere we're jumping 15 feet. It's kind of a gradual process, and I've been doing it since I was 12, so not to show my age too much, but
you're showing experience
of my life. Been doing it for the majority of my life at this
right.
point. So.
It never occurred to me that there would be short poles.
Yeah, so they make that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize is that we have many different poles and they vary in length, they vary in stiffness, and they have different weights on them. And so, the younger you are or the less experienced, you're on shorter poles that are softer so that you don't, get rejected to the back of the runway. And then as you get better, and even now today, I carry around 8 to 10 poles with me going to a competition because when I start on a short approach. So we count every other step when we run down the runway so that we know exactly where we're taking off every time so that we jump on the same step every time. And so if I'm running from a shorter approach, let's say it's like 60 feet, and so I count 4 lefts, I'm going to be on a shorter pole and a softer pole than if I was coming from 115 feet, which would be my 8 left step, full speed. It's going to be a longer pole. And ultimately, the pole vault, when you break it down, is just how fast you run, how high you can grip, and how much you get pushed off the top of the pole. That equation is the simplest way I could describe it.
And I'm still sort of stuck on the fact that you travel with 8 to 10 poles.
Yeah. We definitely get some looks in the airport, that's for sure.
That sounds like a total pain in the you-know-what.
Oh, it is. We always joke about how high maintenance we are, and it's tough. It's a tube, so I mean, you're just carrying around one unit, but they get to be 50 to 60 pounds, and you're carrying them on your shoulder, 15, 16 feet long. For the guys, it's going to be longer than that, and you're just got to try and check them in to the airplane, and half the time they're like, I don't think we can do that, and it's definitely not the most fun, but unfortunately we can't not do it.
Of course. It sounds like pole vaulting is really technique bound. Do you like that part of the sport? I mean, do you like making sure that your technique is really good? And I'm sure that you have to keep on working at it.
I do, and actually, I think that's what's cool about the pole vault is it's not unheard of when someone has a big personal record, like a new personal best, because if they kind of refine their technique one way or another, that could be kind of the game changer. And that's honestly why I wanted to move out here. One of the things that I really struggled with technique wise was my takeoff. So that initial jump where your pole hits the back of the box, you jump up, the pole starts to bend. I would lose a lot of energy there, and I won't get into the physics of it because it's kind of complicated, but I really was looking for something maybe a little different. And I loved my old coach, and he was a phenomenal coach. But I just felt like I needed someone that would focus more on that into putting better energy so that I could get onto stiffer poles so that I could ultimately jump higher.
And you had some good results this season so far. Is that what you attributed it to?
Thank you. Yes, actually. So I went out at Thanksgiving and I practiced with his name is Brad Walker. So I practiced with Brad for just a week, and I had 3 very short approach jump sessions. But the cues that he gave me, I used all through indoor season when I came back home. And I was still using the training plan of my other coach, but I was using the cues that Brad had given me. And I mean, it was a world of a difference. And that was what was kind of the game changer for me. And that was what made me realize this is the place that I need to be, because if we could accomplish that much and I could have the success that I was having with just a couple sessions, what could we accomplish in, 3 years going into the next Olympic cycle?
That's really cool. What do you think makes you a good pole vaulter?
Oh boy, making me toot my own horn here. I think something that I am better than a lot of people at is I'm very fast on the runway. I've had a lot of people compliment me on my run, and people that were kind of like, man, with how fast you run, why aren't you jumping higher? And I was like, I don't know. But I would say that, and then I swing really fast.
What does that mean?
So it means that I get upside down on the pole quickly. And so my speed on the pole is pretty decent, in terms of from the moment I leave the ground flipping upside down. It's kind of a quick, fluid movement, which makes it a little bit maybe easier. But the thing about pole vaulting that's cool is there's no one right way to do it. You look at the difference between some of the best in the world, and they all have very different jumps. It's kind of cool.
What is one of the most difficult aspects for you in your sport?
The mental aspect, hands down. I think most of us can agree that a lot of us are similar in terms of physical ability once you get up to this level, but it's who's going to be toughest that day. It's who can get out there and just beat the elements, because a lot of times when it's outdoor season, we'll have, headwinds or crosswinds or rain, or, it's who is the toughest on that day. And, I think at this level, it just comes down to who is mentally toughest on that day.
And what are you doing to train for that?
So actually, when I would practice at my old facility, when I would run from a full approach, so my full outrun that I would run from in competition, I would make my coach give me like a tap on the back right at the takeoff to kind of give me a little confidence boost in every single jump. And so, we call that, getting a tap. And my new coach was like, I will give you one of those a session, and that's it. And so in the past few practices, I haven't used one once, and I'm getting on bigger poles than I've ever been on in practice. And I think that's instilling so much confidence in me, because I'm not relying on things like adrenaline from a meet or a tap from my coach. I'm not letting my feelings get the better of me and my emotions get the better of me. It's just coming down, doing the same thing every time, hitting the takeoff, things like that. But I think just being in a good mindset coming into a competition and not letting things get the better of you. And I think, he was the toughest person mentally on the runway when he was in his prime. He won worlds twice. He's the American record holder. And so I knew coming out here, my biggest struggle, more than my physical issues, was my mental game. And I wanted to get better at that. And I knew he was the guy that was going to help me achieve that.
So what are your goals for the next few years?
In a couple weeks, June 25th, I will compete at our U.S. National Championship meet, and the top 3 from that will qualify for the World Championships in London in August. And so I would love to make that team. So placing top 3 on next Sunday is my most immediate goal. And then there's a World Championships. It varies between indoor and outdoor, but every year leading up to the next Olympics. And so I would love to make those teams. And my biggest goal is to make the Olympic team. The women's pole vault in the United States is arguably one of the hardest Olympic teams to make. If you look, so the way it works is you have to have a certain height standard. And there were 22 of us I think it was 22. It was over 20 that had that height standard, whereas every other country maybe only had a couple people. And most countries didn't even have girls to fill out all 3 spots. And so it's just, it was crazy because, our top 2 women that made the team that year were the indoor world record holder and the girl that got silver at the Olympics. And the third spot was by a freshman in college who was just a stud. And so the next couple girls all had, myself included, had good days, had some of the best days of their lives and didn't make the team. And it's just kind of crazy looking at that. But I think what that did is it kept me motivated. I think if I was in any other situation, I'd like to think that I wouldn't stay static, but it'd be harder to push myself out of my comfort zone to continue to strive to get better to make these teams. Whereas if I was in another situation, another country, if I was making a team, I might not have that same kind of incentive to really keep improving. I think coming off of that, you can choose to look at it one of two ways. Some people, it really defeats them because you worked 4 years for this one meet. And unfortunately, most of society only sees track and field success as if you went to the Olympics. They don't know much about the sport. And so if you tell anyone what you do, if I say like, oh, I'm a professional pole vaulter, they're like, oh, are you going to the Olympics? That's pretty much the first and only question they ask. And so for some people, it just kicks them down and knocks them out a little bit. It's really hard to bounce back from that. And I think I'm pretty fortunate that I just took it as, okay, like, let's get better.
I think that's a hard question to hear when it is the only question that you get asked is, have you been to the Olympics?
Yeah.
And I know it comes from, that they want to support you and they're really interested, but, there's so much more than that.
Right. Yeah. And it was tough watching it because most of the girls that were in the final were girls that I had competed against internationally a lot of the year. They were girls that in some cases I had jumped higher than, but that's just the way that it works. And I think it would be cool to make a team for the U.S. because I think when you make a team for the U.S., you're in a better position to place well. It's not just that you made the team and you went, like you have a shot to maybe medal. You have a shot to really, really do well. So that's definitely inspiring as well.
I want to get a little bit to what kind of training you're doing. You have a coach.
Yes.
Like, what is your week like, and what are you focusing on?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, this week I got knocked out by a head cold, so I've been in my bed a lot. But normally,
other than this week,
yeah. So we typically vault 2 to 3 times a week. Most people think I just vault, all day, every day, and that's really not the case. It's very demanding. Physically, mentally. And so in order to get really good sessions in, we only typically vault a couple times a week. The other days are spent, we get lifting in, Olympic lifting, which I had never had in previous programs. And I think that's another reason I wanted to come out here is I really don't enjoy lifting. But I knew that if I was in a program that forced me to lift a lot more, that would also make me tougher because I'd come in and I'd do it. And I think when you get better at something, you're going to enjoy it more. So as I've noticed, as I've gotten stronger in the weight room, I've started to enjoy going more than I did when I first came out here. And we'll do sprinting workouts. And like anywhere from 6 by 120 meter sprints all out, or 3 sets of 3 30-meter dashes. And then other days will just be technique type stuff where we call them pole runs, where I will literally run down the track with the pole as if I was running towards a pit and a plant box and just kind of run out of it, but so that it makes my run very consistent, because that's going to set you up for everything. So if your run and everything leading up into the takeoff is consistent, it's going to help you immensely. So we work a lot on that. Yeah, I think those are the big ones.
Do you do any yoga or stretching or anything like that?
So I actually hate yoga. Hate's a strong word. I'm so inflexible, which is weird because I was a gymnast when I was little, but I'm so bad at it that like I don't enjoy yoga, but I know how good it is for you. And so my coach would bring in a yoga instructor for his team and I would go to that. And I actually did start to enjoy that more, but it always kind of cracks me up when people are like, "Oh, hot yoga." I'm like, "Well, I hate sweating and I'm not flexible, so that's my worst nightmare." But but I respect it. Like I have mad respect for people that are good at yoga. I'm just not. But I I acknowledge that it's definitely good for a person and their body. And I've been bad about stretching in the past, and my coach has been writing in more stretching sessions, like at night and just longer stretches after workouts and things that I didn't do in the past, but I really need to because I'm pushing my body more, and it's definitely something that I need to utilize. So
You're going to be a friend for all the listeners who really hate yoga and aren't good at stretching.
or all the people that love yoga are going to be like, this girl sucks. No, admittedly, I'm terrible. I have minimal flexibility, but we are working on it. So
I really know very little about pole vaulting. I have watched it a fair amount because I do find it fascinating to watch everybody fly through the air. But one thing that I noticed preparing for this interview is that you guys have amazing hip flexors and amazing abs.
thank you. Yeah, so I think what's interesting about pole vaulting is that you're really using every aspect of your body. Like, I'll be sore in places I didn't realize you could be sore. But yeah, I would definitely say core work is huge, because, and then shoulders. I would say your shoulders, that's what propels that motion, and then your core is what kind of gets you upside down. So we do a lot of things related to core work and shoulder stability, strength,
Are you
things
doing
like that.
are you doing that in the gym, or does that come from just the vaulting?
Both. Yeah, so vaulting itself gives you a lot of good general specific strength. So in lifting days, some days I'll have what's called an auxiliary lift, and it's a little bit lighter of a day, but what it will include is more like pull-ups and some high bar drills where you're just kind of hanging on a bar, and you'll do things like, flip upside down as if you were, on a pole, or you'll start upside down just hanging. So you hang and you flip up so that your feet are over your face, and you drop down to your knees, and then you have to come back up. And I have videos of this on my Instagram, but I like those because they're more very specifically related to what we're doing.
And how often are you doing that?
Once a week.
Got it.
And then he'll do also like just general strength type things after pole vaulting sessions, where it'll be a circuit of, V-ups and Supermans, and there's like 10 different things, but that works on core and your back and things like that.
What is your normal day like?
So I typically wake up, I would say these days I'm waking up around like 9ish or so, and I'll try to get like 2 meals in. So I eat every couple hours, so I try to get 2 meals in. I'll wake up and eat instantly, and then wait a couple hours, eat again, and then I'll go do my workout, whatever that may be. And then depending on the day, I can be there for a couple hours. Some days I'll be there for 5 hours, just because I'll do, like, for example, some days I'll have a vault session which lasts a few hours, and then right after that I'll go do a lift session which takes a couple hours, and then just kind of come home and unwind and watch some TV. I feel like most of my day is either training or focusing on training.
I think it's amazing that we can fill up our days just doing athletic stuff and thinking about athletic stuff. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because so many people are like, where I moved to, it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's farm town. It's very much just a college town. And they're like, don't you get bored out there? But I think I'm sure there will come a time where I will, but as of right now, I haven't, because most of my focus is, going into training or actually training. And then by the time I get home, I'm kind of tired, not wanting to do much anyway. So it kind of works out.
And do you like competing?
I love competing. It's funny. I always kind of joke. I'm not one of those people that's like, yes, I get to go work out today. Like I'm pretty lazy by nature. But I love competing and I love getting new personal records. And I know that in order to do that, I have to put the work in. And so for me, it's like, okay, you know, what do I want more? Do I want to sit on my couch and watch Netflix? Yes, but more than that, I want to set a personal record. I want to continue to get better. And so you have to put the work in. But competing is just, I love the adrenaline of it. When you clear a bar, whether it's your opening height or, some bar in the middle or a PR, it's the best feeling. It's the ultimate elation, and it's hard to describe, but you can see it in some of the pictures that are taken of us when we're competing, especially when we clear a new personal record. I mean, the facial expressions, what I like about them, aside from being super embarrassing because they're not cute, it's pure emotion, elation. Like you don't have any time to think about what your face is going to look like or calculate, like you just react, and it's pretty cool just seeing pure emotion on your face.
I'm trying to imagine. I mean, you have this big competition coming up next week or
Yeah.
in a little more than a week. So when you go to the competition, like, how do you approach it? Like what are your personal tactics to get there in the right frame of mind and, make sure that you're set up, with everything that you need, whether that's those 8 to 10 poles or whether it's, a special pillow or all that, or, like in your food that you need at the actual meet. Like, what are you doing to prepare for that now?
Yeah. So from a mental standpoint, I try to go in staying really calm. Like I've noticed there have been times when I get really excited a couple days early and then my adrenaline is just depleted by the time I get to the actual meet. And so just staying calm when I'm in the meet, just really focusing on the cues that we've worked on and not letting emotions get the better of me, just staying really, like, obviously channeling that adrenaline and using it, but not letting my mind get scatterbrained. Just really focusing on the couple cues that we're working on. From a physical standpoint, in terms of food and things like that, yeah, I just try to stay really consistent. On a regular basis, I try to get 6 meals a day in. That doesn't always happen, but I really just try to eat every couple hours, and that keeps me pretty regular, and just it keeps my body energized and my metabolism going, and try to get really good protein and some complex carbs in there with healthy fats and fruits and veggies thrown in. The night before a competition, I try to eat. Lately I've been eating pasta with some form of chicken, grilled chicken preferably. And then, like I said, I always have a little bit of dessert the night before. I don't know if it's a mental thing or if the way the sugar reacts in my body actually helps, but I did that all indoor season and it didn't hurt me. So that's my excuse to eat dessert. uh, but yeah, I try to stay really hydrated. I'll drink a lot of Pedialyte, or there's a brand called SOS Hydration that's really good, and I try to just stay really hydrated. And then I eat about an hour and a half. So like the day of, if it's an early meet, I'll wake up early, make sure I'm fully awake, have a couple meals. And then I always try to eat about an hour and a half before the warm up. So with the pole vault, it takes a very long time because, you start your jogging about a half hour before the warm up even starts. So you do your jogging, your dynamic, your static stretching, and then the warm up starts and you have an hour on the runway of just practice, just getting warmed up, actually vaulting, and then the competition starts. So competition, from the time you start warming up to the time the competition finishes, can be anywhere from 3 to 5, sometimes longer hours. So then you add your warm up time on top of that, and it's yeah, it's a good amount of time. So also making sure that I have snacks in between.
What are you eating for snacks?
So my favorite is, they're called picky bars. They were designed by professional runners who were kind of wanting something that was more natural bar. They're a bar, and a lot of those have just a lot of processed stuff in them, not real food, and so they created these bars that were all natural, all real food, and they're more carb based. I think they're more than protein based, but for a competition where you need carbs to work off, I think they're great. So after a warm up, I'll have one of those and I'll feel great through the competition.
I have a bunch of questions about all that competition stuff, but the first one is, what are you eating for breakfast? You say you have 2 breakfasts, so what are your 2 breakfasts?
So when I first wake up, so I'm working with this company called Chike. It's a protein coffee, and I love them. So my first meal will typically just be that with either oatmeal or maybe some cereal or some form of carb paired with that. And then my next meal could be either, a sandwich with, turkey or chicken or, or maybe eggs. I love eggs. I do, whether they're scrambled or, over easy or whatever. I love eggs. So I do a lot of those. Because it's good protein, and then you get your healthy fats in there as well with the yolk.
I love eggs.
They're the best. My coach is like, really? Eggs again? I'm like, well, they're cheap.
Why not?
They're cheap, and I'm kind of broke, and so eggs again.
So another question is, during the competition, the actual competition section of the meet,
yes,
how are you maintaining, I guess, your poise and also your calm? And what are you thinking about when you get on the run? I don't know, is it called a runway?
Yes, it's called a runway.
When you get on the runway with your pole, like, what are you thinking about, or are you thinking about nothing?
I try to keep my mind pretty clear, except for those couple cues. It's definitely it's a learning experience. I think what helped was that growing up, I was pretty good, and so there would be a lot of downtime after the warm up, waiting for my opening height to come in, because you can choose what height you want to come in at. That might be a risk, because if you miss it, that means that you didn't make any of those heights before, and it's called a no height. But at the same time, you don't want to tire yourself out and come in at all these lower bars, and then by the time you get to bars that, are close to what you actually want to jump, then you're exhausted. So I think it helped having that when I was younger, a lot of waiting around time, kind of, you learn how to channel your energy when you need to. So you get on the runway, you focus that adrenaline, you get that adrenaline rush, you think about your couple cues, and then you come down, you execute, and, if you miss it, then you have a couple minutes, you talk to your coach, figure out what you did wrong or what needs to be changed, and then, get back on the runway, kind of channel that energy again and do the same kind of thing. And then if you make the bar, then you have more time to just kind of relax. And, it's a balance of learning how to get that energy up and then just relaxing. It's definitely it's a long, exhausting competition, mentally and physically. But I think, like I said, the people that are the best are the ones that mentally are just able to channel that adrenaline the best and, execute what they need to.
It sounds like you've learned or are learning really to be able to control your emotions and your focus. It's quite impressive.
Yes. And this sport, it's very easy to let your emotions get the better of you. If you took a jump that everything felt great, and let's say you just came down on the standard, like you came down on the bar a little bit, so you have to move the standards. The standards are where you can place the bar based on where your hips are peaking. There's a little bit of leeway there. So there's a lot of technical aspects to the pole vault. It's not just how you jump. It's also knowing where to set the bar and knowing, what pole to be on at which height and things like that. It's being able to keep everything the same, not let your emotions get the better of you. If you're down to a third and final attempt, not letting yourself freak out. It's really kind of keeping that focus. And it's nice having your coach there to kind of say, yep, this is what happened. You're fine. Just do this. Put the standards here. You're good. It's definitely nice getting that second set of eyes and somebody that watches you on a regular basis when you practice, so they know kind of how you adapt and they know how you respond to certain things. And
I have one question. This is sort of going back to when you started. I was curious about when you were a young girl. Was it fun for you to be an active, energetic girl, or was it weird? Did you get support being athletic?
Yeah. I did. And in my school, actually, a lot of girls were really athletic. We had a very athletic grade. So it was fun because a lot of my friends, I would get to, hang out with them at different sporting events and things like that. And so, not to stereotype, but it was, kind of cool to be a girl and be an athlete in my school, which was awesome because I know some girls don't always have that. But yeah, it was really fun. And I was just obnoxious when I was younger, just bouncing off the walls, way too much energy. And, I think pole vault was kind of perfect for me.
Have you experienced any sexism as a professional pole vaulter?
Um, not nothing that like jumps out at me like, oh, that was awful. Like nothing like that. Actually, I've I've found a lot of respect for the women's pole vault from people, which is really nice. But I mean, we're in a sport where it's almost a that's what she said joke in and of itself. So there's a lot of just sexual jokes made, which I kind of just laugh at because I mean, I get it. Like you're playing with poles and a lot of the things that we say, like, penetration, like things like that, you just get a lot of jokes out of. But, and I've heard comments like, like the women's pole vault is overall a very beautiful event, and good bodies and things like that, which is very flattering. But no, there hasn't really been anything that would jump out at me as like just sexism.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting to wrap up. I was wondering if there's anything that we didn't get to that you really want to talk about.
Well, I remember you in your email you had said talking about like issues that maybe like we as athletes have faced. And what's interesting, I think, and me and some of the girls have kind of, I don't know if you could call it a campaign, but it's this movement thing, I guess we're doing. My friend started it, and it's called the I Am Enough challenge. And it's basically, I, myself included, but a lot of girls you hear always, putting themselves down, whether it be like, oh, I just look kind of fat today, or, oh, I look so ugly today, whatever. And what I've realized is that what she did is she was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like you would never say that about your friends, so why are you saying this about yourself? And something that I've really, really struggled with in the past couple of years has been body image. And there was a time when I was not eating nearly enough for what I was trying to do. And so I think that I've gotten kind of on board with that and just showing girls, because I looked at a lot of the girls that I was competing against when I was coming in, and they were all in these like crop top sports bras looking fantastic with these incredible abs. And at that time I didn't have that. And I have a different body type. I would say, my legs are really long and lean, but my torso is short. And if I gain weight, that's where it's at. And when you put on a sports bra, it doesn't always look great, proportionately. And at least in my eyes, it didn't. And so I really struggled with that. And talking with a lot of the girls that I compete with, they also had body image issues. And it was kind of crazy to me because I looked at these girls as having these perfect bodies. And so I just recently kind of posted a thing just showing that, a couple years ago I was down, I'm 5'8", and I was at 120 pounds trying to get on poles that were 45 pounds over my weight because I was not eating enough because I wanted to feel good in a sports bra. And I kind of just wanted to show, now I'm, 20 pounds heavier, and, I'm happier than I've ever been. And focusing, the focus is not how I look, but how I compete. And so, and I know that if I was thinking these things, I know there are high school girls out there looking at us thinking the exact same thing. And the last thing I want is for them to think that, everything was all perfect and I love my body all the time, because it's not true. And but it shouldn't be like that. Like, you can wear whatever you want without having to worry about that. Like, if, and I think this past indoor season I wore a tank top just to kind of say, like, I don't care. Like, and I don't know, I'm trying not to get too preachy or anything like that, but basically I want girls to know that, as long as they're healthy looks a lot of different ways. And so there's not one right way to look healthy, even though I think, society doesn't always tell us that. If you lined up all the pole vault women, all of our bodies are very different. We are all built very, very differently. And the work that we put in allows us to look a certain way. But if you look at a lot of other events, like, everybody's body is different and there's no one right way to look. It's all about being healthy and the function of strength and things like that.
You're so brave to talk about that. I think that's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So are you talking to high schools?
I have, yes. I went in and spoke with an elementary school, which was really fun, last year. And then I spoke with a high school volleyball team last year as well. And so I haven't done as much this year, but I really enjoy talking to schools.
I bet they love having you there.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Are there actual actions with this I Am Enough challenge?
We're not really doing it as, to get something other than just, to kind of reinforce to girls, like, you're pretty enough, you are smart enough, you are good enough, you are whatever it is that you're struggling with, like, you are enough. And so we're not really using it to, like, capitalize off of it. It's really just more of to show girls, like, we struggle too. It's normal, but you shouldn't. Like,
I love that. I think being enough is a really difficult
concept.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
And I know there will probably be people listening to this like, oh, whatever. But, it's something we've all, like, really, me and my friends at least have all really struggled with it. So.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Katie. This has been absolutely fantastic, and I appreciate you coming onto the podcast and coming on the podcast last minute.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. Hey, sign up for the newsletter that I send out every other Thursday. It's filled with lots of excellent info and links to great stuff, including videos and suggestions from guests. Also, a few explanatory links if you want to find out more about the guest sport. It'd be a great help if you went to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and rate and review the podcast. I'm looking to spread the word and allow more female athletes to find the podcast. Thanks again. See you in a couple weeks.